So, so you get this knowledge base from Jesus Christ as his Jesus has divine power. He is God. And it has already, folks. Once you become a believer, it's given to you. You don't earn it. There's nothing you have to do to get it. It's given to you. His divine power have given unto us all things. What are these all things that he's talking about? These things pertain unto life. There you have it. Your life, your lifestyle. You see, now we're getting into perseverance. He's talking about lifestyle. That lifestyle, if you get this knowledge in complete comprehension, you'll understand this grace. You'll understand this peace that you literally have and live in and live by. You'll be filled with the knowledge of the scriptures. That, that produces something. It produces godliness. Folks, if your knowledge of this word, because it had already been given to you through God's divine power, if that don't lead you to this, you got a problem. You have a problem. Because the grace of God, watch, let me show you. This is going to come out of Titus. Here's a comparable verse to what we're talking about. The grace that saves, you're saved by grace alone. But the grace that saves isn't alone. Okay? Now, oh, I'm sorry, it's in chapter 2. That was another part. I love that verse in chapter 3. But this is where I want to go. All right. So what is he talking about in Peter? All right, let's look at this again in 2 Peter so we can get the context clear. So we're talking about this divine power that has been given to us, and it's given to us so that we can know what this grace and this peace, fully comprehending, this is comprehending the knowledge of God in Jesus Christ. All right. When we get a full comprehension of that, it's already given to you through his divine power. He has given it to you. Okay? There's no doubt about that. And it's pertaining all things. Everything you can think of, God's done it already. And it's pertaining these two things right here, grace and peace. Now, this life, this lifestyle that he wants you to do it through godliness. That's what this grace and this peace produces. Now, that's the context. So let's go to Titus and look at what it says here. For the grace, same thing you've seen over in 2 Peter. That is grace. This grace is from God. You can have grace and it don't come from God, then this statement won't be true. This only comes from God, folks. You can't produce it. There's no other place to get it. It only comes from God. That kind of grace, what does it do? That, what's the that? The that is back here. The grace that brings salvation. Okay, this is the only kind of grace that brings salvation. the kind that comes from God. That particular salvation, in the past tense, it has appeared. And it appeared to all people. Everybody gets this benevolent grace. Part of that grace saves. The other part of that grace provides. So everybody gets part of this grace. How do I know that? Because if you live 1 second and breathe your first breath, you receive grace and mercy. Okay? God should have killed you. Second thought, he should have killed your mother. You should have never been born. See, that's grace. All right. But when that particular grace shows up and it imparts salvation, what happens to the person to whom that grace is bestowed? It does something. It teaches. When it shows up, grace begins to teach you something. What grace? God's grace. It's not alone, folks. It teaches us, every single believer, nobody is left out. It teaches us to deny ungodliness. Whoa, just what Peter said. Peter says it produces godliness. Paul says it causes you to deny ungodliness. It's the same thing. It changes the way you live. If you have the true grace of God, you will know it through the scriptures. How does it show up though? So people ask all the time, how do I know that I am saved? This is how you know, folks. When the true grace of God shows up, I knew I was saved. I started thinking different. I started seeing things differently, seeing things. I started noticing sin. Mhm. And it bothered me. It taught me, and it teaches every believer. Look, it teaches us, not just Kevin. It teaches us. You're going to start noticing sin. You're going to start noticing a lot of sin. And you're going to say, I don't want to participate in that. That's not me. So, if this kind of grace that you said you got from God don't cause you to start living a God-like lifestyle, then you got the wrong grace and you got the wrong God. Oh, and by the way, you don't have salvation. Not only that, ungodliness, but look, worldly lust. What is that? That is the pursuit of things that you pursued before God saved you. What were you pursuing? Just a quick question. Well, one, you were pursuing your own agenda. That agenda included what kind of work you want to do. You want to be healthy, so you exercise. You want to be, you know, uh, when you say rich, but you want to be well off to where you can take care of yourself, right? The pursuit of all the natural things that every single unbeliever pursues. They want to be healthy. They want to be wealthy. And I don't necessarily mean rich folks. Everybody don't want to be rich. Even some people that are rich don't necessarily want to be rich. So when I say wealthy, I mean just having the ability to take care of yourself without just worrying about starving, right? I mean, there are people in the world today, around the world, who, as long as they have their meal today, they're content. Then you got others like people in America who they need 10,000 meals to be content. They got to know where their meal coming from 10 years down the road. So what am I saying? If your pursuit from God it's the same things that you wanted before you came to God, then that's what he's talking about. Worldly lust. You want a better job, you want a bigger house, or you want just a house. Your pursuit haven't changed, then you know you don't have the grace of God because it changes this. John describes what this is in First John. So if you're curious about what this worldly lust is, go look it up in First John. All right. So denying ungodliness, denying the worldly lust, we should live. Now, what does this denying this worldly lust? Basically, he's talking about contentment, folks. That's what that is. God says, I want you to be content. No matter what situation you find yourself in. Paul said he was in prison, beaten, stoned, hot, cold, had abundance, had little, had nothing. I mean, all these things. Paul says it didn't matter to me. I denied the worldly lust to have all my problems fixed, all the perfect marriage, the perfect children, the perfect husband, the perfect wife. You know, none of that mattered. Paul says, I found my contentment. I denied the worldly lust. Okay. We should live. See, there you go. We're now talking about your lifestyle. We should live soberly. This is not talking about not drinking. So don't read that kind of stuff into soberly. We think sober. The first thing comes to our mind is somebody's drinking. That's not what he's talking about. He's saying don't be under the influence of anything that's not God. Same thing he said in the book of Ephesians. Okay? He's talking about being under the influence. Don't be influenced by anything or anyone who's not pointing you to Jesus Christ. If they're pointing you to anything else, if they're pointing you to anything else other than Christ, God says you're not thinking soberly. See, all I'm supposed to think about is Christ? Yeah. Everything that you do, you're supposed to think about how can it, whatever I'm doing, whatever the it is, can glorify Jesus Christ. That's all I'm saying. If what you're doing doesn't bring Jesus Christ glory, you shouldn't be doing it.